OK, but first, the good news keeps on coming for Arsenal, doesn't it? BAKAYO Saka has agreed a new long-term contract at Arsenal, which will keep him at the club for another 5 years. Saka's current deal still had 18 months left to run, but Arsenal have now secured his services until 2031, by which point he'll still only be 29 years of age. We understand clubs across Premier League and Europe were monitoring Saka's situation, but his preference has always been to stay at Arsenal. So Dean, good to see you as always. How important is this, do you feel, for Arsenal's future then?
I think it's vitally important to keep players of this quality, of this stature, a player that clearly loves being at the football club, who can be seen as a kind of shining beacon for other players that you're looking to try and lure to the football club, and young players that are coming in as well. He's just got so many attributes, both as a player and I think as a person, and the way he conducts himself. Why wouldn't you want him to stay for the rest of his career? Because I can't see his standards dipping, and I think there's still more to come. I still think there's still a lot more that he's going to offer over these coming years that he's signed for. So I think it's a real positive step for Arsenal to make sure that they tie him down for a long time.
When we saw that opening VT, some of the goals are quite ridiculous, aren't they? Where does he rank for you in terms of the best wingers in the league?
Oh, he's right up there with the absolute best. I think only Salah has probably pipped him in terms of the numbers that he can produce over a long time period. Saka's right up there. I think he's one of those that kind of goes under the radar because he doesn't seek the limelight in any way whatsoever. Just gets on with his job. Works incredibly hard, very humble, but every game you know that in a moment he can create something special that you need. And I tell you what, he's so reliable. He doesn't miss many games unless he absolutely has to, and that feels like a rarity in today's game, which is again a big positive for the manager when you've got your best player available, and finally it feels like there's an understudy in Madueke and others to give him the rest that he probably needs.
Yeah, and that strength in depth is so important for Arsenal at the moment. But people like him, you'd want him starting every game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I think what you wouldn't want is burnout. Yeah. Having come in so young, played so many games already at his age, you wouldn't want then at the end of his 20s to feel like that's it, he's burnt out. I think he needs protecting. I think, again, he's someone that doesn't openly complain about the amount of challenges that he gets and kicks, and again we can all kind of think, oh well, he's constantly on the floor, but if you are involved in the game and you're getting the studs down the calf, if you're getting a whack on the ankle, they build up every single game and every single week, and like I said, he doesn't miss many of those games despite the amount of physicality that he has to withstand, partly because of his quality. I think, again, it shows his mental strength as well.
I mean, he's always been a go-to ever since sort of Arteta came in as well, in terms of what he's done since he arrived on the scene. His statistics are quite ridiculous in terms of what we see here. First on the list for everything: goals, assists, involvements, chances created, big chances created, and shots as well. I mean, it's a phenomenal career he's already having, and he's still so young. No wonder they wanted to tie him down when the rest of Europe can see this.
I mean, all the attributes that are so important to a player in his position, he's right up there. What it doesn't say is distance covered and you know how he tracks back and how he helps the fullback and all of those things that maybe go under the radar. But the most important ones, when you're in that position and everyone's looking at you to score and create, he's there. And he's doing it regularly, and he has done since he got into the Arsenal team. What he probably hasn't had, and I'd love to know whether he thought that, is he hasn't really had those top-level, goal-hungry strikers that maybe should be putting away more of the chances that he creates, and his numbers would probably be even better if he had those players, because so many of the Arsenal forwards haven't been those out-and-out centre-forwards. Gyökeres is one of those, and I think we're still waiting to see that combination between him and the Arsenal striker. Yeah,
I think a lot of people would agree with that. We'll certainly talk about Gyökeres a little bit later on in the show. In terms of Arsenal, do they need somebody just as good on the other side, though? Because is Saka so so brilliant, so shining on one side, and then they haven't got that the other side of the pitch.
I think they're searching for it.
Yeah.
Of course they are. I think Martinelli and Trossard are taking it in terms almost to try and reach the levels that he does.
Yeah.
And they can, but it's the consistency that's so impressive from BAKAYO Saka that I think sets him apart from probably anyone else in that side. Now, can Madueke step in and be that player that challenges him and challenges those players on the other side? I think he's got the quality to, but I think they'll always be searching for that next player. And it just feels like Arsenal are just building, and every transfer window they're looking to just chip away and improve that next position or that next level of position to try and continue to go on and win things.
Just in terms of that, you mentioned the transfer window. Do you expect them to do much business at all this window, or do you think they've kind of got what they need?
No, it wouldn't surprise me if they did,
Okay.
if the opportunity came around. And I think when you're in a position of strength, as they are, that is the time to go and seek and find players. We hadn't really talked about Mark Gahey as a possibility at Arsenal because of the centre-back. But again, it's that type of transfer where you would think, well, if you're in such a position of strength, a player could really be tempted thinking, well, you're probably going to go on and win the league. I'd love to be part of that straight away in January, especially with the World Cup coming up as well. So I think it would be impressive if they can do something that kind of takes the eye of everybody.
Yeah, you make a really good point. Let's reflect on last night's game, and everyone's talking about it. Martinelli and what he did, shall we say, to Conor Bradley. Let's take a look at it. Everyone's got a view on it. What's your opinion?
I think first of all, obviously, we want to wish Conor Bradley well, because that's a horrible position to be in when you've done something. But there's a few moments now. Of course, Martinelli throws the ball at him. You can't excuse that.
Yeah.
He's behind Bradley, so he maybe doesn't see that, and you see he rushes to go and get the ball as soon as it happened. He maybe doesn't understand the severity of the injury. And then what we see is Conor Bradley is in pain, but Conor Bradley's thought process is, like lots of players nowadays, they've all been infiltrated by the same things, is he's thinking, I've got to get myself back on the pitch. He initially rolled off the pitch, back onto the pitch, and then dragged himself onto the pitch, which from anyone's perspective, and that's the thing that incensed Martinelli, was that he saw him drag himself on the pitch and he's saying, well, no, stay off the pitch, you're wasting time. So actually, I think people have really piled on Martinelli, and rightly so, because it's clear that he's injured, and I think he will feel remorseful of what he did. But in that moment, I can see why he's upset with Conor Bradley, because he feels as if he's dragged himself back on the pitch, which so many players do. And also, nowadays, we see lots of players go down holding their injury, slamming their hands on the floor like it's a terrible injury. And then seconds later, they're up and they're fine because they maybe don't get the decision, etc., or the game carries on. This has been infiltrating its way into the Premier League for many, many years, and all players are part of it. And this is what you then eventually get, is players are clouded by if somebody's injured or not.
He doesn't know how bad it is, does he? I guess.
Ultimately, his actions are wrong, Martinelli, in the way he treats Bradley. But there's a bit more to it than just he's a disgrace. I don't think it's that case. I think the way he's seen it is that Conor Bradley's trying to gain an advantage and waste time because he's dragged himself back on the pitch, and that's been his reaction, which is a poor one. But I thought it was a little bit harsh to pile on Martinelli, probably the way that people have done.
I think absolutely you're right in terms of piling on. Just finally on this, a lot of sort of former players were saying, perhaps last night and this morning, that in terms of the injury itself, when you see it's kind of off the ball, it kind of wasn't a collision, immediately your head goes into that's a bad injury. Do you think Martinelli just didn't have that thought process last night, just didn't see that?
Maybe not. Again, we don't see what Martinelli sees. Has Martinelli seen what's happened, or is he quickly shifting his eyesight to where the next ball is to take a quick throw in because he wants his team to get on with the game? And everybody else, we've got, certainly us that were watching, have got the replays, can clearly see there's an injury. No one's near him. So in that sense, I think that's when hopefully Martinelli has watched it and gone, I've made the wrong decision, because it was clear that he was injured. But it's very difficult nowadays to know if anybody's injuries because so many players act like they've got serious injuries when they haven't.
Yeah, and as you said before, we wish him well, don't we?
Gabriel Martinelli will avoid further punishment from the FA after throwing the ball at Conor Bradley and attempting to shove the Liverpool defender off the pitch as he lay injured at the Emirates last night. Martinelli was booked by referee Anthony Taylor following the incident at the end of Arsenal's goalless draw with Liverpool. Jay Bothroyd believes he should have received a stronger punishment. The Liverpool captain Virgil van Dijk had this to say on the incident. Everyone was unhappy at that moment. It wasn't a couple of players, but everyone, and rightly so, because Conor was on the pitch, and to be pushing him off the pitch is not really a good sight. We all came together and we had no clue what really happened, but it doesn't look great, and it doesn't look great on Martinelli either. We're focusing on Conor now. Hopefully it is not the worst, but it doesn't look great. He will have medical tests coming up in the next 24 hours and we will have to adapt. Well, right back Bradley was taken off on a stretcher after the incident. Martinelli apologised on Instagram. That was the right thing to do, according to Gary Neville.
He didn't read the room, Martin. It was really poor. It was almost disappointing to actually, we all disappoint ourselves. We all let ourselves down on a football pitch and get carried away at moments. But that'll be one that I think Martinelli, after, I think he'll head off into that changing room. I think he'll go and see Conor Bradley and say, I'm really sorry, I should not have done that. Yeah, he didn't read the room. It was a poor reaction. And maybe there's a little bit of sympathy in the sense that he probably thought Conor Bradley was trying to edge back on the pitch. I think he actually did a little bit, didn't he, even though he was injured. But he threw the ball at him to start with, and then he sort of pushes him off the pitch. And I'm surprised the Liverpool player didn't go over and really grab him by the scruff of the neck. I'm looking at actually Roy Keane in my picture here. If that had have happened to one of our players, I think he'd have been in full force.
Let me tell you right now, if that was me on the floor, and he didn't drop the ball either. Martinelli didn't drop the ball. He went like that, and then he's like nudging him in his back with his knee, and then he's like pushing him off the pitch, and Conor's obviously got a serious injury. I think everyone can see that. These are the kind of things that happen in a game, and we've seen it in the past, where if I'm Conor Bradley, as much as Martinelli's come out and he said sorry, I will not be forgetting that the next time I play against Martinelli.
In terms of the seriousness of his injury, though, watching that again there, when you see him go down, it's late on in a game as well. Is it obvious straight away that it's a serious injury? Because we now know that it was. He was stretchered off. But immediately, is it obvious?
I think that's irrelevant whether it's obvious or not. You don't act like that to another peer, for example. Yes, obviously they're trying to win the game. I understand that part. Everyone's anxious, it's going back and forth. It's a high-tempo game. I understand that part. But you don't put your hands on anyone on the football pitch. One, he's thrown the ball at him. You don't do that either. You nudge him with your knee. You don't do that either. And it's not okay to just come out afterwards and say, I'm sorry. Because in that moment, he was trying to react. He didn't think he was wrong.
Could Martinelli be punished retrospectively for the incident, Dermot?
I think not, Hannah, because he's had a yellow card. He's had a yellow card for his actions. I still go back to what I say. If the players leave it to the referee's got a different landscape to deal with. But when they all pile in, he's got to check everybody else, and a lot of things get lost. But in that incident, I think Martinelli has made a very, very unwise decision.
Could it have been a red card?
No, I think there's not quite enough there.
But there was 3 kind of separate incidents in that one incident, really, because obviously he has thrown the ball at him.
He's dropped the ball on him.
No, he went like that. His hand's the opposite way around. Dropping it would be he's got his hand with his palm facing upwards. He's actually he's thrown it down.
Second one.
Then obviously he's nudging him with his knee, trying to get him off the pitch. That's another one. What was he doing that for? And then he's actually pushed him. He shoved him. So like to me, I'm looking at that and I'm saying there's kind of 3 separate incidents there that can be another yellow card.
Very, very rarely you see 2 yellow cards for 1 incident.
You don't forget things like that because it's like, why are you putting your hands on someone? Martinelli doesn't know if he's really injured or not, but ultimately you don't need to put your hands on someone.